It's time for Michigan's newest sports talk show, Mitten Madness.
And here he goes. Defense win championship.
Michigan sports talk from here in Battle Creek. The latest stories, the biggest games, all across the Mitten State.
That's not something you play with.
Streaming live and on demand on the 95.3 WBCK app. Here are your hosts, Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes.
All right, hello there. Good morning. It's Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes on Mitten Madness, 95.3 WBCK. Set to talk Michigan sports for the next hour. We're going to have some fun because it is a huge, huge weekend in Michigan, because Michigan and Michigan State are set to do battle out at the Big House. We'll get to that in just a little bit. We'll also catch up on what's going on with all the professional Detroit franchises, sans the Tigers, since their season has come to a close, but the Pistons and Red Wings just getting started. The Lions are hitting a stride. But first, DJ, how's it going, man?
Oh, it is going phenomenal, considering I have pretty much just become a Packers fan for this season. I'm hell-bent on the Packers and the way things are going there, and I'm trying not to let the rest of my fandoms ruin my life.
How can you not be romantic about sports? I mean, things are going okay, I guess. If we're just talking sports, Pittsburgh looked pretty good with Russell. I'm not disappointed in that. Hope they have some consistency on Monday night against the Giants. I'd rather just not talk about Alabama, though. If that's all the same to you, I think we both feel very similarly about our college football teams. But unfortunately, we live in the state of your favorite college football team, so we are going to talk about Michigan and them playing host to Michigan State. But just so listeners know, this week, DJ and I face off in our fantasy league. So that's why you probably didn't hear DJ say anything about his fantasy team, because man has been working the free agent wire looking for that move that's going to send him over the top.
And I ain't got one.
The number one team in this league.
Number two.
I beat the number one team in those standings.
Hey, but the standings go by points for, and you are number two, sir.
I beat him head to head. I'm the best team in the game. So
all I'm saying is I ain't got it. I'm sure I'm going to lose this week, and that's okay. Cause you know what? I'm third in a league that my team was 10th in last year. So I will take it.
He has turned it around quite a bit. It's impressive. But I think we both know how this one's going to go this week. But let's get to another game where I don't think anybody really knows what's going to happen in this. Least of all ESPN and its matchup predictor, which gives Michigan an absurd 67.2% chance to win.
We don't agree with that.
No. Plus the spread is 5 points in favor of the Wolverines. Michigan State's coming off a huge win last week, guys. Somebody tell the computers and the guys out in Las Vegas, Michigan State has only lost games that they were supposed to lose. I mean, because Boston College was I mean, sure, they're not one of the best teams in the country, but they are a solid team that started the season strong against other solid teams, including Michigan State. Then they got routed by Ohio State and Oregon as expected, but they came out last week, hosted the Iowa Hawkeyes, and put a hurting on them. Won by 12 points, put up 30 in this ball game, showing that they can compete with the middle tier teams in the Big Ten. And guess where Michigan falls? In the middle tier of the Big Ten. Michigan is not even close. These teams are right next to each other in the standings, both 2-2 in the conference, 4-3 overall, but only Michigan is coming off of a 2-game losing streak, both on the road against Washington and Illinois. Illinois looked sick last week in those throwback uniforms with the leather helmets. And Michigan couldn't overcome the Fighting Illini, who are, you know, kind of in that next tier in the Big Ten of they're playing above, you know, their standards, might not win the conference, but hey, it's fun. But it shapes up for what is going to be a bizarre addition to this long-standing rivalry, DJ.
Yeah, I mean, I will just say this is going to be one of the better games, I think, in this rivalry in the last couple of years. The only game I can think back to that will be similar to this one, in my opinion, is going to be the infamous punt game. And all Michigan fans know exactly what game I'm talking about. Most Michigan State fans know exactly what game I'm talking about. And if you're not a fan of either, and you're just a college football fan, you know exactly what game I'm talking about. It has that kind of energy to it coming into this game where both teams are very similar in stature, and one team's going to come out much better out of this and may even go on a little bit of a run, and the other is kind of just going to fall into the depths and call it a day. And they may not even win games on this run, but they're at least being competitive and playing good football, whereas the other team is probably going to pack it up and call it a season. Especially if that team happens to be Michigan State. They don't have anything to hang their hat on after this. Michigan at least has Ohio State to play later in the year. Like, there's another reason to get up and play football for the season. Whereas Michigan State loses this game, sure, you can fight to go out and make sure you have a bowl game at the end of the year, but you don't have that bragging rights game to look forward to for the rest of the year.
That was the point I wanted to make, was the bowl game eligibility. That's where ESPN kind of leads off, as that's what's at stake in this ball game. If Michigan loses, they have to find a win between Oregon, Indiana, and Ohio State just to make a bowl game.
They ain't going to find that.
Exactly. Like, Indiana is the most likely of those. But if you have actually sat down and watched Indiana play football,
buddy,
dude, they brought in those Dukes from James Madison and they are balling. A lot of people probably look at the score box or the box score of that Nebraska game and they're like, oh, well, Nebraska's not fully back yet. Nebraska is not a bad football team in 2024, my guys. And Indiana is not the same old Indiana. Is Indiana going to win the Big Ten? Probably not. But can Indiana beat Michigan and make sure that they're not going to be bowl eligible? Hell yeah, they can.
Yeah, and a big part of that is due to the fact that Davis Warren still leads this team in passing yards, and he hasn't played since week 3.
Oh, God.
There is no quarterback play on this team.
You can't win in 2024 without a quarterback.
And I don't blame anyone for that but the coaching staff. You overinflated the talent that you had in your quarterback room, believing that you had it there, and you did not. And you did not. That we are all seeing it plain and simple. You should have gone out into the transfer portal and gotten a quarterback to come and play for you, i.e. Dante Moore, who's sitting behind Dylan Gabriel in Oregon right now. He's from Detroit. Would have been the perfect opportunity to offer him a spot back here in his home state, right down the street from his home city, and giving him a chance to play for one of the best programs to ever exist. And instead, you decide to say, these dudes in here are all right. We can figure it out. And you can't, because your offensive line ain't as good as they should be either. But hey, I digress. The bigger thing here is if Michigan doesn't win this game, they are not going to be bowl eligible, which means I will probably stop watching after this weekend, because what else am I watching for?
I mean, there's always Ohio State, but that might be a case of masochism if you're a Michigan fan watching that game.
I am praying that Alabama Auburn is on at the same time. I need another game to watch when the Michigan Ohio State game is on, because it ain't gonna be the big noon kickoff this year. I'll tell you that much.
Gonna end up watching Georgia Tech or South Carolina Clemson.
I'm finna watch something, because Michigan Ohio State ain't gonna be big noon kickoff. And it ain't going to be a good game.
On the other side of the spectrum, when it comes to that bowl eligibility, if Michigan State does win this game, they only have to beat one of either Purdue or Rutgers to kind of solidify that spot. And that's a very realistic path. They can probably squeeze out a surprise win against either Illinois or Indiana, more likely Illinois, even though that's on the road. But I mean, nonetheless, winning this game does set them up to make this an incredibly successful first year for Coach Jonathan Smith.
I don't think they're beating Illinois.
That's fair.
Illinois is playing great football.
We have to cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah, but realistically, Michigan State doesn't even need to win this game. I trust them to beat both Purdue and Rutgers.
Rutgers will sneak up on you. Purdue's bad.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, if you got Michigan State in their first year going into that Rutgers game needing a win, I'm trusting Michigan State a little bit.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
You know what I'm saying? Like if they happen to lose this Michigan game and they're going into those last 2 games of the year, like, hey, we need to win these 2. I'm trusting them a little bit more to win those games than if it was Michigan having to play Purdue and Rutgers. I'd be like, well, them Rutgers boys almost got us last year. Not literally, because they scored the first touchdown and then got blanked, but they're a team that can score on Michigan. Purdue has never really been able to do that. Not a problem there, but I do trust Michigan State looking at their favorable schedule. there's 3 to 4 wins left in this 5-game stretch. Michigan, on the other hand, has 1 to 2 wins left in this 5-game stretch, which is all the world's difference with how this game will play out.
We are nearing the end of the season. We're starting to talk about bowl eligibility. We're talking about 4 games left in the season, the regular season after this week, and kind of putting a bow on how fan bases feel about their team's seasons. And it's so bizarre that, obviously Michigan State is in sort of a rebuild kind of state, but, if both of these teams end up finishing 7-5, which is not going to happen, the optics would still be completely different. Michigan State they're riding high if they just manage to win 6 games. But for Michigan, it's tough to even see a path for them to win 6 games. And you start to wonder if drastic changes need to be made or if there needs to be patience in Ann Arbor. And I'm not sure what stance you take on that, because we're in the college football playoff expansion era. There's 12 spots. And when you're so bad that you can't even compete for one of those spots as Michigan, then you're in a really tough spot to move forward. When you're Michigan State and everything around you has changed and you've had the best season of your existence over the past 5 years, then you're able to use that momentum to kind of start to try to bid to make the playoffs yourself in the near future, which isn't totally out of the realm of possibility because they have a young team led by a freshman quarterback and a freshman wide receiver. One thing that we'll have to talk about when we pick this game later is the rushing attack of Michigan versus Michigan State's rush defense. We'll talk about that when we pick the game. But we do have to take a break and come back and start talking Pistons and Red Wings here on Mitten Madness, 95.3 WBCK. All right, we're back here on Mitten Madness, 95.3 WBCK. Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes. Let's dive into the world of basketball. The NBA season has gotten underway. We've got our, history shot with Bronny and LeBron on the court at the same time, and we're ready to get that season go and see who's going to climb to the top of the NBA. It certainly will not be the Detroit Pistons. They did only lose by 6. Pacers did have to come back to win the game, but a lot of other things within that contest, as well as the upcoming schedule, make it very, very difficult to envision the Pistons doing much of anything. But as we have said all off season, as if it's a long one in the NBA in the first place, just double your wins. Just win 28 games. And I think most Detroit Piston fans would be happy, but there's a reason to believe that it's not going to be as easily done as it is said, right, DJ?
Yeah, there are some problems that have arisen already. I wouldn't even say problems. I would say concerns that have already arisen. Concern number one is the stretch that the NBA put them on to open up the season. I know scheduling is hard because I'm a coach who has to schedule his own games. It's hard to get teams together and times and spaces to play and all these things. It's hard. Especially when you're a situation like the Pistons, who are technically renting their home arena from the Red Wings. So you don't get first dibs on when you play. The Red Wings do, and then you adjust your schedule based off that. So there's tons of things that are going into that. But when you got to open up playing the Pacers, the Cavs, the Celtics, the Heat, the 76ers, Knicks, Nets, Lakers, Hornets, Hawks, Rockets, Heat, in that order for your first 10, you're in trouble because there's only about 2 to 3 wins on that schedule.
If you're lucky.
If you're playing good ball and are really ready to play.
Yeah.
And from what we've seen so far, that seems to be the case. You were beating the Pacers, at the end of the third into the fourth, had a little bit of a fourth quarter lead before they turned it on and ended up coming out with a 6-point victory. Losing by 6 to the Pacers is okay. Why? The Pacers were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. They were, granted, they got swept, but basically they were 4 wins away from being in the NBA Finals. And you lost to that team by 6. And they returned a ton of talent. So you're already doing better than you were last year in terms of being able to compete with some of the top teams in the league. But what you can't go and do is put 6 people on the court. In game 1, the Detroit Pistons had 6 people on the floor.
Can't do it.
That results in a technical foul, 2 free throws, and the ball. So if they score off that possession, that's a 4 to 5 point swing. You look at the score, 115 to 109. You take away that 4 or 5 point swing. The Pistons lose by 1 or 2. And then you add the momentum that comes with that. And maybe the Pistons win this game if they don't make that stupid mistake, because of all the things that follow on behind it. But we're talking about the Detroit Pistons here. How many times can we count on one hand? We can't. The amount of mistakes they made last year. It's going to take 2 hands, 2 feet, and a couple other body parts if we're going to make it work. They made a lot of mistakes last year. They've already made one in game 1. And one that is very simple to not make. Who's on the floor?
I mean, 12 men on the field in football happens quite often. It don't happen.
And you know what?
In basketball.
And in basketball, they got to put the ball in play before you're in trouble for having 6 people on the floor.
Right.
So 6 of y'all stepped out there, nan coach, nan player on the floor, nan player on the bench, nan assistant coach, a fan. Ain't nobody screamed out, we got 6 on the floor. Nobody. And we supposed to expect this team to be great? Nah, I'm expecting them to be good. I do hope they double their win count. But at the moment, there are some serious concerns. Part of it is just the fact of how the schedule laid out. There are tough spots. But, after that 10-game stretch, you play the Raptors twice within, 10 days. You got the Wizards in there. The Hornets are in there as well. The Bulls, who are kind of a team right now. You don't know what we're getting with the Grizzlies this year with Ja Morant coming back and getting him back into the flow. You have the Pacers again. The Jazz are actually on the up and up. The Suns have come back down recently. So there's some teams in there in your next group of 10 that you're able to steal a few more games from. But you got to be able to kind of come out of this as unscathed as possible in your first 10 and then really look to make a boost in your next.
It's too bad the Cavs game has already happened for the listeners, so I can't necessarily ask you about that. But obviously that's huge for, the optics, of course, head coach playing his former team there, and it is an opportunity to win, even if it is within this 10-game stretch that is difficult. But, I mean, realistically, if the Pistons are realistic about what their expectations are for themselves, then they know this 10-game stretch will not be easy. And what they have to do against a lot of these teams that are playoff contenders is do what they did against Indiana, just bring down the mistakes. Show that you can be competitive and that you're not going to get waxed by everybody that knows they're going to win 45 plus games this year, and go out there and show that you can be competitive. And then once this 10-game stretch is over, you let loose on those other teams that are going to be winning as many games as you are. Because that's how you double your wins. That's how you show improvement, is by beating the teams that were on your level the year before and are expected to be below you this season. They've got an opportunity to do that and kind of reach that next tier in the NBA, where it's still outside of playoff contention, obviously, but at least showing that the franchise is headed in the right direction. Speaking of franchises in Detroit heading in the right direction, the Detroit Red Wings, easy for me to say, are on a 3-game winning streak. They beat the Preds and Islanders on the road, then came back to Little Caesars Arena and beat the Devils 5-3. They even had a stretch in there at one point where they were able to win a game with just 11 shots on goal, which is absurd. 5th fewest shots in a win in NHL history, tied for that at least. So props to them for that. That's efficiency. But they find themselves in the middle of the Atlantic Division, just a few games into the season, just 7 games into the season, I guess, to be specific. Later today, they'll play the Buffalo Sabres on the road. That's at 1 p.m. So, DJ, just your thoughts on the early goings for the Red Wings after they were able to get back on track, get above 500.
Looking at the early part of the season, they did beat 2 playoff teams from last year. I think it's huge being able to beat teams that were in the playoffs the year before and have not moved on from a ton of their talent. I think that is huge. You beat the Islanders and you beat the Nashville Predators twice, who both were first-round exits from the playoffs.
Yeah,
but
the Preds kind of stumbled into the playoffs.
But guess who wasn't in the playoffs?
No, I understand your point completely.
And guess who you lost some games to at the end of last year to miss out on the playoffs? Both of those teams.
Yeah.
So I think that is kind of the silver lining. in the beginning of the season, other than having a positive record at 4-3. You're second in the Atlantic Division right now. You're stepping into a game against the Sabres, which is very winnable for you, putting you on a possible 4-game win streak. And 2 of your 3 losses this year are to playoff teams. Well, 1 playoff team. You lost to the Rangers twice, who arguably have the best goaltender in the NHL right now. So am I really surprised that you only scored 3 goals in 2 games? No, I'm not. But I am thoroughly happy and impressed that you were able to bounce back after your game 1 to Pittsburgh, which should have never been a 6-3 game. But we give it the game 1 jitters kind of treatment. Bounce back from that, get a 3-0 win, drop 2, and you win 3 in a row with a chance to start really grinding. So this is the portion of the year where the team really starts to gel together. They've been in camp and things, but there's new pieces here, and those new pieces are starting to fit in, and you see it. Alex DeBrincat is insane. Rasmussen is insane. You have Mo Seider still. You have Dylan Larkin. This squad is really starting to put together some extremely positive pieces when you look at who they've brought in and to what they already had. And if this team is able to keep this level, I do not doubt that they make the playoffs.
I think another aspect of this that might ought to get looked at a little bit is the play of Alex Leon. Cause this dude is leading the league in a few categories. I mean, he's 2-1. But I mean, 1 game with 29 saves, another with 37. I mean, when you've got a guy you can trust in the net, that's huge.
Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest part of the game is you got to have a guy that can stop 90+% of the shots you're seeing. That's what you need out of a goalie is 94, 95, 93, that percentage of stoppage. And he's putting up that or closer.
His 95.5 leads the NHL.
You almost can't get better than 95.5. Like, I don't think some people realize how good 95.5 is. A lot of the best goaltenders at the end of the year, they're hovering around 90, 91, 92 on the year. If he can maintain this pace, the Red Wings are only going to get better. Lucas Raymond's going to find his stride. And I just went through a bunch of players. This team is set to make a run if they're going to have good goaltending behind them. I like that they made the change to Alex Lyons so much earlier than they did last year. Yeah. They went to Lyons late in the year, and he almost willed them to the playoffs. Going to him early here not only shows the trust they have in him, but it's going to give them a true shot to settle into themselves as a team and attack for the playoffs.
Yeah, his save percentage last year in his first season with Detroit was .904. His 1 season with Florida was his career high at .914. But that's really kind of when he started to play a lot more than the early portions of his career with Philadelphia. So this could be, at 31 years old, this could be a bit of a breakout type of situation for him, but he's playing fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean, they're only 11th in goals against because they did not start Alex Lyons at the beginning of the year and had some trouble in goal to begin the year, but they're 16th in power play percentage, 31st in penalty kill. They're doing fantastic in terms of taking care of the most important parts of the game, scoring when you have the advantage, taking the advantage away, and keeping pucks out of the net.
And last year was kind of an indication. You're not going to have problem scoring every time you're out on the ice. More often than not, the Red Wings are going to be able to do what they want to do offensively. So if they've got somebody behind them that they can trust, and Alex Leon is, or Lyon, whichever one it is, forgive me. Either way, that's going to be a massive boost early on in the season. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we will talk about the Detroit Lions. They're coming off of a huge win last week, but this week they've got a little bit of, speed bump in the road, as it were, against the Tennessee Titans. We'll break it down next here on Mitten Madness, 95.3 WB.
Detroit sports fans, Wolverines and Spartans alike. This is your sports show, Mitten Madness, with Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes on 95.3 WBCK.
Mitten Madness, 95.3 WBCK, Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes. The Detroit Lions, they are all alone top of the NFC North at 5-1 following their 31-29 victory over the Minnesota Vikings, who also, by the way, just lost again in heartbreaking and controversial fashion to the Los Angeles Rams, which will have its own ripple effects for sure, especially when it comes to Cooper Kupp. But as for the Lions, this week they will line up across from the Tennessee Titans, who are one of the worst teams in the league. So we were probably not going to spend too much time talking about the Titans and what the Lions need to do to win that game. It's not just show up, but the Lions are built to handle these kind of games. But looking back on the win over the Vikings, that game did not come easily. And a lot of the conversation in the locker room, you know, those TikTok videos that we get to see where, you know, Coach Campbell is handing out the game balls and whatnot, you could tell, man, they had to scratch and claw and persevere to win that football game, especially after the fumble return for a touchdown that gave the Vikings the lead back late. This is one of the more impressive victories the Lions have had over this stretch where they have been more dominant in the NFL, but this is kind of the thing that solidifies them. They are 1A or 1B in the conversation for best team in the NFL. I think they've looked more consistent than any team in the league, not named the Chiefs, and that's only because the Chiefs are undefeated, and a lot of people don't feel like the Chiefs even should be undefeated. So, I mean, argument made for the Detroit Lions to be the best team in the NFL, right?
I mean, the Lions the best team in the NFL. Like they ain't been like. Let me just say this: the NFC North is by far the best division in football this year.
By far,
like there is no question. Even the horrible Bears are positive and ranked above my Packers in the division.
Careful, you call horrible.
They are horrible because they ain't played nobody, and we know this. They don't play an NFC North game until week 10, and then they finna start getting smacked. Another topic for another time. This division is insane right now, from the quarterback play to the secondaries to the running back play. It's all there. The coaching, it's all there. They're going out and they're beating everyone, right? The Lions have a weird week 2 loss to the Chiefs, or not the Chiefs, the
Buccaneers.
The Buccaneers, after coming off a game where they beat the Seahawks, or I might have
Rams.
The Rams, which was, as we all know, an emotional game because of the Stafford stuff and him coming back to Ford Field and blah, 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 blah. And then they go on a tear. They beat the Cardinals in a game that was much closer than it should have been, got the revenge on the Seahawks, dismantled the Cowboys, and then took care of the red-hot Vikings. What? Like, I don't know a 5-game...
Who's got a better resume?
I don't know a 5-game stretch in the NFL right now that is tougher than this one that they just went through currently. Like, there are some stretches later in the year on some schedules that are pretty daunting.
6-game schedule. But
yeah,
the Rams, Bucks, Cardinals, Seahawks are all vying for a playoff spot. The Vikings will be one of the top seeds if they don't win the division, and the Cowboys are, they're falling off. But they're also at Jerry World,
and they're also playing in arguably the worst division in football this year. That NFC East has done like nothing so far.
The NFC West,
NFC West. But if you look at the record, you look at the records and who they've played across those two divisions, they're very similar. Like they're both at the bottom of the barrel. You can probably throw the AFC West in there too, because they ain't really
AFC
been
West
doing nothing.
Really bad.
You know, the Chiefs are getting their grace of God from the refs and helping them look somewhat good.
AFC South is
the AFC South.
There's a lot of bad football.
Also very bad, right? There's a lot of bad football, but there's one place you can go to get some good football, and it's the NFC North.
And
Big
Ten country.
Team is leading that division? The Lions. And we called this when we were talking about earlier in the year that the Lions were most likely going to win the NFC North, but that it wouldn't be easy. And look at where we are, week 6.
I tried to tell you that the Bears were going to be part of that problem too.
I don't think the Bears are part of that problem. All right, they have not played anyone.
Nonetheless, and they play someone this week. We're going to pick that game.
Yeah,
that's for sure. And boy, was that one a surprise too. But all adjacent to this conversation of whether or not the Lions are the best team in the NFL is Jared Goff and his MVP viability. I would argue, DJ, that the only player in the NFL, I think there's 2 players that have better resumes when it comes to early MVP candidates, and it's Josh Allen, who hasn't thrown a pick yet this season. That's kind of the big reason why. And the Bills are overperforming despite a lack of talent. And now they have Amari Cooper. They could become more dangerous. And TJ Watt. And I think some of that in me is biased, but also dude has been absurd. He's been the defensive player of the year so far, and that should give him some credence to that. But everybody else has kind of underperformed, because then you get to that next tier that involves guys like Baker Mayfield and Kirk Cousins, who haven't been the mark of consistency this season. But when they've been on, they've been on. So Jared Goff, I mean, this dude gets his name chanted in Detroit, but now it's starting to get followed by MVP. Like, he's at another level this year, or at least over the past 3 games.
Well, on passes 20-plus yards down the field, he is first in the NFL in passer rating. He is second in completion percentage. When he's pressured, passes where he's under pressure, he is first in completion percentage, first in yardage, 5th in QBR. There isn't anyone out there with a better resume for MVP right now, because he's also 5-1 while doing that in the best division in football. He's playing top-notch talent because they did win the division last year, which means he has to play all the division winners in the divisions that he's going to play against. And he's doing this against top talent in the NFL. And he's first, second, 5th is his lowest ranking right now in a stat that truly matters to quarterback play. 5th. That's insane. He has like no turnovers. That's insane. He caught a touchdown pass. That's insane. He's playing the best football we have seen from a Detroit quarterback arguably ever. How is he not truly in the MVP race?
Stafford is thrown for 5,000 yards.
I said arguably.
Multiple times.
I said arguably. I didn't say definitely. I said arguably, which means you can argue it.
Stafford wasn't winning those games either. Well, it wasn't Stafford losing them. Obviously, yes. Perspective is everything, but Stafford had some pretty ridiculous statistical seasons when he was here in Detroit, and he continues to do them in LA too, by the way. His performance on Thursday night was absurd. But I mean, the context around everything, you provided the stats, but it's also the context of he is the quarterback of the best team in the league. And a lot of people will say, well, the Chiefs are undefeated. Patrick Mahomes has thrown 6 touchdowns and 6 interceptions.
8.
Okay. It's even worse, dude. Yeah. Like, Mahomes isn't having a horrendous season or anything, because they're still winning games, but statistically he's fallen off of, the pedestal a good bit. And Jared Goff has taken the opportunity to grab that brass ring. And I think a lot of people around the league are kind of acknowledging that. A lot of the expert talking heads that you listen to in the background, instead of focused like this show, is bringing up Jared Goff to be in that conversation, and not just in the conversation, but leading it. You got people that'll argue for Josh Allen because he's overperforming on a team that lost all of its weapons and he hasn't thrown a pick, and that's admirable. But that's on the AFC side. You talk about this side on the NFC. Josh Allen isn't playing in the hardest division in football. He's playing in one of the easiest, because the Dolphins, Patriots, and Jets suck. And the Lions just went through and played some of the best teams in the NFC that are going to be vying for playoff spots, namely the Rams, Bucks, Cardinals, and Seahawks, and of course the Vikings. That's special. You're going to throw picks, you're going to play tight games, but you're going to win 5 out of 6 of them? Dog. That gets you an MVP vote out the gate. Just got to keep it up. Obviously, this weekend against the Titans should be a win. Don't want to take them too lightly, but the Titans are pretty bad. After that, 2 road games, Packers, Texans, another tough test ahead for Detroit, but we'll talk about it when we get to it. Coming up next, our picks here on Mitten Madness, 95.3 WBCK.
95.3 WBCK.
We're back here on Mitten Madness, 95.3 WBCK, and it is time for our picks as soon as we get an update from DJ on the standings. I understand that last week did not go well.
It smoothed itself out, but I think both of us were watching a couple games on Saturday and went, well, that's great. And it just kept getting...
I did that for a game that we didn't even pick.
It just kept getting worse. So the NFL definitely saved us a little bit last week. We came out 3-3, so You're at 27-21, and I'm still a game behind at 26-22.
Yeah, well, we did pick Alabama, Tennessee last week. It just didn't go the way that I wanted it to.
No, it did not.
At all. You know, the great part about traditions is that you often end up spending money on things that you don't get to use. So there's some cigars that are going to be sitting in my apartment for the next year. Unused. It's great. Let's get into it with our picks. The Chicago Bears are 4-2. 0-2 on the road. Keep that in mind. They are on the road to play host to the Washington Commanders, who are 3-0 at home, 5-2. However, the Commanders have a big question mark at quarterback. Rookie sensation Jaden Daniels is questionable to play in this ball game after sustaining a rib injury last week. It did appear that, things would be okay, but this is a battle between the number 1 and number 2 overall picks at quarterback, both of whom have played pretty well, up to expectations. It took a little bit more time for Caleb to get going, but the Bears look strong. The Commanders look even stronger. DJ, who you got in this absolute toss-up of a game? If you look at that ESPN matchup predictor, there's a % chance of a tie before they give either of these teams an outright chance to win. Who you got?
This one hurts.
Does it?
This one hurts. All right, I'm going to be honest. I don't like that Jaden Daniels is coming into this game questionable. That's scary for me. Because picking him and picking them and then he doesn't play is not great.
Yeah, Marcus Mariota ain't winning that game.
But also, no matter who's at quarterback for them, whether it's Mariota or Daniels, they have to play a very tough defense that has been tough for a little while now in the NFL. And at the end of the day, the Bears have yet to win a road game, but I cannot pick the Commanders if Jaden Daniels is not 100% at this moment. It's just too scary, so I have to pick that team from Illinois.
That's the same way I got to be about it. The Bears defense is really, really good. Plus, they can run the ball. I'm not, you can be 0-2 on the road. When you can go play the Commanders in their house, it's not like you're walking into the craziest environment in the NFL. So that doesn't play too much of a factor for me, but I'm right there with you. If Daniels can't go, it's a problem. And even if he can go, that's a rib issue. He takes one bad hit and this game is flipped on its head, and the Bears are going to hit. I got to stick with Chicago.
Our next game in the NFL, both teams are 4-3. Tampa Bay is going to be hosting the Falcons. Tampa Bay is a 2.5-point underdog in this game. 57% chance coming from the matchup predictor. Bucky Irvin is questionable. Chris Godwin is on the IR. Mike Evans is most likely out. Can the Bucks do enough with Baker and what they have left in the chamber, or are the Falcons going to cruise to a victory?
It's kind of crazy. The Bucks opened as 3-point favorites, and now they're 2.5-point underdogs. They won this game in Mercedes-Benz 36-30 in overtime just a few weeks ago, and they're already playing for the second time. I'm going to stick with the home team here. Both teams are wildly inconsistent, but Tampa Bay is just a touch more explosive. I always trust in the moxie of Baker Mayfield. He's not the kind of guy that you're going to knock down more than once in a row. Kirk Cousins is going to play well. It's going to be a high-scoring game like it was last time, but I'm going to do the bold thing here and stick with Baker and the Bucks.
Yep, my chance to slide in here and make this thing back even. I'm definitely going with the Falcons. This one for me is as simple as Chris Godwin is on the IR and not coming back this season. Mike Evans is 1,000% sitting out of this game. Bucky Irvin questionable.
Are you trying to get me to switch?
No, I'm just pointing out the fact that their top 3 playmakers outside of their quarterback are hurt, and I'm not trusting a team to go out and beat anyone without their top 3 playmakers. So I'm going to go with the Falcons for that reason. And if I have to take an L for it, I'll take an L for it.
I can definitely respect it. Let's get into college football. We've got a very interesting matchup in the Big Ten as the number 20, 6-1 Illinois Fighting Illini head to Oregon, Autzen Stadium, to play the Oregon Ducks, who are not only undefeated at 7-0, 4-0 in the conference, they are the number 1 team in the land. They're 22-point favorites, have a 91.4% chance of victory, but Illinois, coming off of a huge win over Michigan, a narrow loss to Penn State, and an overtime win to Nebraska, they have some things going for them. That said, just a 1-point overtime victory over Purdue mixed in there, whereas Oregon was beating Ohio State by 1 point in that same day. DJ, who you got? Ducks, Illini.
This one's interesting for me because Illinois is in a position they haven't been in a long time. This win here, if they were to win over Oregon, puts them in a phenomenal position to possibly be in the Big Ten championship game. They have Minnesota, Michigan State, Rutgers, and Northwestern left on their schedule after this game. If they're able to come into this and will will out a victory, they're going to be one of the top teams in the conference, and it's going to come down to tiebreakers, and they're holding one over Oregon, who's bound to be in that scenario at the end of the year. Same thing being said, Oregon is the number one team in the country, and they have played good football since they got into the Big Ten and have had a chance to turn it on. They had some stumbles early in the year against Idaho and Boise State and some others, but they're playing football now. And I don't know if I can go against that. I'm excited to watch this game, but I will say I'm not a betting man, but if you are, cover. Illinois is going to cover. I do not think this is a 22-point victory or higher for the Ducks. I think Illinois covers, but I do have Oregon with the win.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. Oregon was my early pick to win the Big Ten, and I shied away from it because of how good Ohio State looked, and it nearly paid off, but 1 point was the difference. I'm not backing away from Oregon now. They're the number one team in the land, and I don't think they're going to lose another game until the postseason comes around. Give me the Ducks.
All right, we're going to stay away from the big rivalry games for just a second. We're going to head down south. LSU hitting the road.
This is a big rivalry game.
Yeah, but not like the other two. Not like the other two.
This is a big rivalry.
It is, but not like the other two. The other two are monumental, have been around for forever. Like,
this was just young.
I know.
It's still a good rivalry.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's not a good one, but those two are on a separate pedestal, okay?
I could agree with that.
LSU on the road, going to Kyle Field. Man, we've done quite a few games at Kyle Field now.
It's an environment.
It is. Texas A&M has the environment to play. They're 6-1 on the year. Only lost to those awful Irish from Notre Dame. 4-0 in conference play. LSU on the other side also 6-1, 3-0 in conference play. Does the number 8 team in the country have enough to walk into Kyle Field and overcome the 52.8% matchup predictor chance that ESPN is giving Texas A&M and come out with a win?
I'm going to read off a stat here to you. Garrett Nussmeier has 18 touchdowns to 6 picks, 2,222 yards on the season. LSU's offense has been really good all year long. Connor Wigman, 718 yards, 3 touchdowns, 4 picks. Now I understand he's missed some time, but he has also not played well when he's been in the game. Texas A&M is 6-1 and number 14 in the country in spite of themselves, and also because of the structure of their schedule. Florida, Arkansas, Missouri, Mississippi State. Missouri looked good at the time, but as far as like rankings, but clearly they have fallen off a cliff. It took all they had to beat Auburn, and Auburn's terrible. Or did they lose to Auburn? I don't even remember. But nonetheless, A&M is a phony 6-1 top 15 team. LSU is a legit top 10 team. This shouldn't really be that crazy of a discussion, but it'll be tight just because it's at Kyle Field and because this is a new rivalry and these teams always play each other close. But I'm sticking with the Tigers.
I'm going to go LSU as well. I think this one's pretty simple. It comes down to the fact that, like you said, the schedules have not been similar and LSU has handled business, whereas Texas A&M has run into some trouble with some teams that definitely shouldn't give them too much trouble. So I'm going to stick with the Tigers as well.
These are the only two teams that have yet to lose a game in the SEC. I just now noticed that. That's interesting. Did I have Notre Dame or
Michigan State?
Okay, my bad. Let's get back to Michigan. Let's play Michigan State. Michigan, the huge rivalry all time. Michigan does lead the series 73-38-5, but the Spartans are looking to put number 39 on the board. This one's huge. The bowl aspects of it based off of the remaining schedules for both teams. Michigan State is coming off a huge win in which they beat Iowa. Michigan is coming off a huge loss in which they lost to Illinois. It's in the big house and Michigan's a favorite. -5, 67.2% chance to win. Can your Wolverines pull it off, DJ?
I may regret saying this, but this one comes down to defense and running on both sides. I think our running game is a little bit better. I think our defense is a little bit better. I don't think either of these things are astronomically better than the other side, but I think we have just enough to come out on top. What I will say is I am terrified of what Aiden Childs could do on the move against our team, but I'm going to trust Michigan to come out on top.
Last week, the Iowa Hawkeyes ran for 133 yards on 23 attempts. That was 5.8 yards per carry, and it was not enough. It was not enough. They completed 11 of 23 passes for 150 yards and only turned the ball over once. Michigan is liable to throw the ball worse than Iowa, and Michigan State has already kind of proven that they can stop the run good enough, and their offense can get things going. Iowa's defense, I also contend, is better than Michigan's. This is, as we have kind of foretold throughout the early goings of the season, this is the kind of year where the Spartans go into the big house and pull it out. I'm sticking with Michigan State. Go green.
Last game of the day, Notre Dame taking on the Navy Midshipmen, who are 6-0 on the year. Notre Dame 6-1. Both teams obviously don't have a conference. They're only giving a 9% chance to Navy. Do they have any chance of pulling this one out, or is Notre Dame just going to handle business as they should?
Hell yeah, they have a chance of winning this game. Are you guys nuts? 91% chance for Notre Dame. Have y'all watched Notre Dame play football against a competent program this year? They damn near lost to Louisville. They did lose to NIU. It took everything they had to beat Texas A&M, and Texas A&M isn't nearly as good as we thought they were. No, Navy has ran through pretty much everybody they have played. Memphis got a little bit close there, but this Blake Horvath kid is slinging the rock and running the rock. He leads the team in passing and rushing. 10 touchdowns through the air and on the ground. Yeah, I'm taking Navy.
I would love to take Navy, but I would feel better about taking Navy if this was a home game for Navy down in Annapolis, Maryland. Instead, this is going to be at MetLife Stadium, a neutral site game in East Rutherford, New Jersey. I'm going to take Notre Dame because they have played some tougher competition and have been able to come out pretty much unscathed, and I'm just going to trust them to make it happen. Y'all don't send us into the weekend after I let you know that we both have Oregon, LSU, and the Bears. I've got Michigan. You got Michigan State. I've got the Falcons. You've got the Bucks. I've got Notre Dame, and you've got Navy.
Y'all don't tell my girlfriend I picked against Notre Dame again. She gonna kill me. All right, let's get into it. Later today, you will get Michigan versus Michigan State right here on the station, WBCK. Everything gets started around 6:30 from Learfield. Then you got Sunday Night Football, Dallas and San Francisco, two mediocre NFC teams looking to make a turnaround in their season. That will be right here on WBCK as well, with everything getting started around 7. Next week, we're not sure where we're going to be as far as high school football goes, but we'll be wherever Harper Creek is as they get the MHSAA playoffs underway. And the Beavers looking to make a run. We'll stick with them for as long as they are going. That's going to do it for this week. We'll catch you again next week, Saturdays, 10 a.m. for more Mitten Madness. For Da'Jzon Hughes, I'm Jacob Harrison. Y'all take it easy.
Join Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. for Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. Miss the show or want to run it back? Stream Mitten Madness on demand on the WBCK app. Sponsored by AirwayCashforJunkCars.com.